Hi, and welcome back to Storytime with Dave Booker. Today we're going to continue on with Time Is, Time Was, Time Will Be, and let's see, the last video we did, they had gone to see Gristmill Fields when it was populated and before it got blown up, and now they're going back home to see about doing a reconstruction. So let's see what we got here. Last chapter was What's Old is New Again. This one is Planning Sessions, page 35. And this one's a really short chapter, so I'm going to combine two of them. Yeah. Okay, let's read Planning Sessions first, and then we'll decide. The quote is, always plan ahead. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. That's Richard Cushing, American prelate of the Roman Catholic Church. That evening, they sat around the long table in the lab working out the plans they wanted to give to Chris Ludy, an architect friend that designed and had their house built. Honey started making notes on how they intended to run the place once it was up and running. After the site was laid out on paper with the pictures reduced to sketches, Scott stood up and stretched. Well, kids, it's been a nice vacation, but it's time to go home for a bit. I think I may see if I can talk Olivia into opening a small taverna. Then she tries talking me out of it. She keeps trying to get me to take it easy. Taking it easy doesn't seem to be my style. Scott went over to Fred and patted it fondly. Come on, old boy, let's get me home. He pressed the screen on and using the drop-down menu selected his home and from the list of previous trips. The portal opened and he waved as he walked back home. Honey turned to Don. Why does everything seem quieter when he's gone? That evening, as the sky glowed red and gold, they walked out to the woods and to the cabin. Sitting on the porch, they could see in their mind's eye the village as it was overlaid on what remained. I wonder if there's still any beer in the cellar, Don mused. Honey got up and walked to the back of the cabin. Over the cellar door was a tree that had been knocked over from the explosion and was now home to bugs and feeding spot for birds. Don found a branch long enough to be used as a lever and painstakingly removed the trunk from the door. Honey went inside and brought out a couple of shovels. Together they cleared the door from years of dirt and debris. Don sprayed some rusties on the hinges and allowed them to soak. He dug around where the rings was to open the doors. One was broken, but the other seemed to be in good shape to support the opening. They waited for about 20 minutes for the rust on the hinges to be loosened, and then lighting a torch, they opened the cellar door. With much creaking, groaning, and in a shower of dust from the door opened. One of the hinges gave way, and Don was flung on his back with the heavy door resting on him. Honey helped move it off, and they left it on the ground. The way was now open for them. As the interior became more visible, they could see it hadn't been used much or even changed at all. There by the barrels was the bed Scott had slept in. The barrels of beer were still in place, and there wasn't much left in any of them due to evaporation. As the light finally illuminated the entire cellar, they saw a skeleton in the far corner. Who's that? Honey asked Don. Don looked at the skeleton closely. I don't know, it doesn't look like anybody we know, he answered. He re-examined the bones and was looking at the remaining clothes that hung loosely on the frame. You know, I bet it's Fess. He probably came back here, but for what purpose, I can't imagine. He knew all the stuff he stole was gone. Look around the ground. Maybe he was digging something up that was hidden, Honey suggested. Don took the torch and made a careful examination of the ground near where the skeleton was sitting. In a corner, he found what looked to be marks of someone trying to dig in hard ground with his nails. Honey rushed upstairs and returned with a spade. Don started carefully digging around, working his way inward. The spade hit metal and Don got down on hands and knees, working carefully. The box he dug up was surprisingly heavy for its size. They carried it to the lab for further research. Excuse me. Hey, maybe if I put this out like this, I can get sponsored. Here we go. I'm going to make some money on this yet. At the lab, they placed the box on a table, working at the lock with a screwdriver. With a high-pitched squeal, the box opened to a stack of bills wrapped in a thick wad of paper, 15 small gold bars, and some jewelry. Honey's eyes flamed in anger as she saw Francis's brooch among the loot. She marched, rather than walked, to the TCVTD and located the group leaving Griswold Fields and followed them to the town where they made their new home. Honey followed Francis into a home that she was sharing with several other ladies. She marked down where this was and set the portal for the outskirts of town about a week later. She quickly changed clothes and stuffed the brooch in one pocket and a bunch of notes in the other. She gathered up the rest of the jewelry and put that in her pockets as well. Soon she was gone through the portal. Curiosity got the better of Don, and he homed in on his wife knocking on the home where Francis now lived. Francis opened the door dejectedly, but smiled when she saw Honey. Honey was invited inside and sat down around a table with all the ladies who lived there. Don moved the viewer to a corner and turned on the sound. Over coffee and cookies, Honey explained that they had stopped by the village for a visit and found everyone gone. They searched around and found a few items that had been left behind. Honey pulled out the notes and laid them on the table. Then she started disgorging the jewelry from her pockets. Francis spread the jewelry out on the table, and several pieces were reclaimed by the other ladies. Francis was poking around the jewelry and notes listlessly when Honey pulled out the brooch and laid it in front of her. Honey laughed as Francis covered her face with kisses and nearly smothered her in hugs. "Now look," Honey admonished. "You better hold on to that now. I can't keep chasing after you with it." Everyone laughed. Francis put the brooch on her blouse and resumed drinking her coffee. "Now the money I found in a bundle in the street, I figured it had fallen out of someone's pocket. I haven't a clue what to do about it, so if you could ask around if anyone's lost it, it might help. Nobody claims it, I guess you can split it any way you want." Honey got up to go and was escorted to the door. I turned off the lights in the lab, and Honey walked down the street, turned on the return, and walked home. In the darkness and with the lights of the lab off, she just vanished. Honey sat down in Scott's captain's chair and closed her eyes. "You know, Don," she said with her eyes still closed, "these trips are draining emotionally more than they are physically. I understood what a very short while, but we had connected with them as we had connected with people on many other adventures. We had taken short day trips to some of the places we had visited again to check on the people we had called friends, and some of them we felt as family. You can't travel in time and live alongside people without some kind of bond forming. And for some reason, we had a knack of forming bonds pretty quickly. We decided to take a break and focus on getting the village rebuilt. We called Chris Ludy and were glad to hear he would take this on. We invited him to a dinner planning session. As we ate, he asked to see the drawings and plans we had for him. Looking over everything, he started laughing. Honey and I looked at each other. We weren't architects, but our efforts couldn't be that bad. "You folks are trying to do me out of a job here. These look great, almost like you were there." Honey colored up and I coughed. "We just have a good imagination," I remarked as casually as I could. Chris pointed at the pictures. "Now, how realistic are we going here? Are you planning to have gas for the kitchen, or are you going to actually try to do this with wood fires?" I thought hard. How much can we update, but still retain the flavor of the time we're replicating? Chris, Honey, and I worked out compromises, and Chris gave us the name of a friend who specialized in crafting antiques in cast iron. He could make most remake the kitchen equipment as it was, but more up to date. The rest is pretty easy, and he had people who could redo the furnishings he had listed. It should be interesting by the time it's up and running. I'll make some calls and give you an estimate. By the end of the month, return to honey. Stage 1 is set. Now we wait. Now the next chapter is an interlude, I guess you could call it. Now, in some of the farther books, Cleopatra, the Queen of the Nile, and Honey become, well, here's where they become friends. And Cleo eventually, when she, I don't know how much history you remember, but Cleopatra was going to commit suicide. Well, Honey and Cleo became so close, almost sisters, that Honey wasn't going to allow that. So Honey went back in time and got Cleo and brought her to the present. If I remember right, back up here somewhere, Cleopatra becomes a docent in a museum. So we'll probably get to that chapter a little bit later. In the meantime, we'll do one more chapter, and that's a long one. We'll do that probably tomorrow. I'm off school and don't have a whole lot of plans, so might as well get this one done. And then we start. Now, the first 3 were going to be the initial, just a 3-book set. I got so caught up with these characters that I couldn't stop. 7 books later, and we have the full set, which I think came to a satisfactory close. So tomorrow we'll read our 4th chapter, a final chapter in this book, and then we'll work on Time is Changing, I think is the next, yeah, Time is Changing. We'll do our 4 chapters in that one pretty quickly. Again, I really would appreciate some comments. Appreciate if you looked at my blog. I'm going to update my blog a little bit so that the things that I put out there about the videos and about, my characters and stuff is now up closer to the front when you log in. But there is a link on my website right near the top that says, hey, this is where on these videos, there should be a link that says, hey, here's where to go see my my blog. So please visit it. My books are out, and they are, as good. There's ebooks, there's audiobooks, and there is the paperback. So I'll put a link for the ebook, and then you can find my other books at Amazon, the paperbacks, and on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and a bunch of other places. So look around, find them, buy them, please. I've got them as cheap as I can do it. Any cheaper, I'd be having to pay for you to get them. So appreciate your visiting, Pete. Appreciate you watching these, and hope that you come by tomorrow when I put up a new one. So it's good to see you. Thank you, and good night. Now I got to get up and go turn this thing off because I don't have my remote mouse here. This worked. Good morning, walking down the hill.